2,500 years ago, the Indian spiritual teacher known as the Buddha, or Awakened One, attained enlightenment while meditating under a tree. Today, the residents of the Zen Center of Los Angeles are following the path the Buddha prescribed to experience for themselves their own awakening. The tools they use to bring themselves to greater awareness include zazen, or meditation, and ancient rituals and chants.
My objective was, who am I? That came up as a profound spiritual question in my life, when I was about 26, such that I couldn't sleep at night, I couldn't continue with the work that I had been doing. It totally upset my whole life and put everything into question. And it became a question I couldn't ignore. It affected my whole life all day long. Who am I? What am I? What are people? What are human beings? What is life? What is death? What's reality? What's the universe? What's my part in it all? I mean, these things, they became so pressing I could hardly do anything but just be in those questions. And so for me, I looked for a place where I could make a spiritual retreat, and I came across the Zen Center, not ever having done Zazen or knowing anything really about Zazen. I came here to make a retreat, and I was taught how to do Zazen. And really from the beginning, I felt like it was a tool that I'd been missing my whole life. In other words, prayer itself hadn't been quite sufficient. But here I was given or presented with a form that allowed me to sit quietly and ask the questions I had to ask, and to work with a teacher who was like a guide to me. So I would say that it has been very fruitful for me in terms of resolving these great questions of my life. And to that extent, I could say I appreciate my life more. And that includes all of it. Light side, dark side, happiness and unhappiness, ups and downs. They don't end, Life and death go on infinitely, endlessly. That means, desires are born and desires die,
The basis of most meditation techniques is to be quiet enough, to have your body quiet enough and your mind quiet enough to see reality as it is right there in front of you and within you. That usually our minds are so busy and our bodies are so busy during the course of everyday life that we have a lot of screens set up between us and reality and the perception of real reality. So that when people first sit down and meditate, they're amazed at how many voices there are up here. there's a voice which is saying, well, as soon as I finish with this, I need to go to the grocery store on the way home and pick up some half and half, and then there's a voice saying, be quiet, you're not supposed to be talking, you're supposed to be meditating. And then there's another voice saying, you're not supposed to be criticizing yourself while you're meditating. And there's another voice saying, I wish the person next to me would be quiet. And it's quite appalling when you first begin to meditate to discover how many voices there are up there and what they're talking about. And then doubt inevitably creeps up, and I think it's important that it creep up. I think it's very important that we examine what we're doing over and over and over again and say, is this really what I should be doing? Is this really a good path for me? If we don't question it, then I think we're in a cult. We're caught up in a cult. And so, in fact, this is very much spoken of in Zen. Great doubt is called it. Great doubt should arise. Tremendous questioning should arise about who am I? What am I doing here? What is my life about? What happens after I die? What am I doing sitting here dressed in black on a cushion, meditating hour after hour? Is this really helping me? Is this really helping other people? And that tremendous doubt works like a battering ram to push yourself along on the path.
Well, I came here looking for something, you know. I went through the whole 60s era of drugs and kind of a revolutionary attitude and the whole thing, and somehow that one kind of sort of ran out of gas for me around 1969 or so. And I came in contact with spiritual practice through a friend of mine who was an artist, and he just turned me on to some books, and he wanted me to look at the artwork in the books, and actually there were books about meditation and stuff. And I immediately started reading about that kind of thing, and I kind of approached it from a new drug point of view, you know. And I was immediately hooked, especially when I read about the experiences that were available through meditation. And then through those books, I was introduced to Zen practice. So I read about the way the masters talked about these experiences that they had while they were doing Zazen, these awakening up experiences, and that life was somehow joyful and wonderful after having this experience, you know. And I compared that with the way my life was, and I said, gee whiz, man, I'm in trouble.
Meditate any place, any time, if you're aware of the present moment. So that when you're washing dishes, if you put your awareness in your fingertips, as Dogen Zenji says, put your mind into what you're doing. That literally means put your awareness and your mind into what you're doing, so that if you feel the dish, the temperature of the water, the soap bubbles, the sponge as you wash, then you're meditating.
Community chores are assigned as part of the practice at the Zen-Center and are performed as meditation with extreme concentration and awareness. Another essential element of Zen practice is close personal study with a Zen master.
People have been enlightened by the sound of a stone hitting bamboo or the sight of a peach blossom. So it doesn't even have to be a person. The teachers are always there. The truth is always there. The reality is always there. But we're blind to it. And if a hole comes in the fog just for a moment, the fog of our ideas and our notions, if the hole comes just for a moment, we can glimpse reality through it. And whatever's there can be our teacher. Now, it's very hard to trust someone or something enough to be that open, to really open yourself to them and take in what they have to say, and really consider it, really ponder it, really take it on. So that it's rare that you meet a person that you're willing to do that with. When you meet a person you're willing to do that with, that's your teacher. Someone that you're really willing to trust, really willing to let their words sink in and use them, turn them over, and follow their instructions.
In order to become a Zen master, a Zen student must receive what is known as Dharma transmission, a kind of cosmic diploma from his or her own teacher, obtained only after many years or a lifetime of training. Maizumi Roshi is extraordinary in being Dharma successor to 3 different Zen masters, representing 2 normally separate schools of Zen. In teaching Zen in California, Maizumi Roshi is in a very different environment than he himself studied in Japan.
We're at a stage which is almost like adolescence in Zen practice in America, that Zen was brought to America primarily in the 50s and 60s is when it really became planted in American soil. And it came from a number of countries. It came from Japan, like our center, our teacher's Japanese, Tibet, Korea, China, and it came primarily as a monastic practice, at least from the northern countries like Korea, Tibet, and Japan. But the teachers who came had been trained in monasteries, and that was the model they knew for doing Zen training. The other model they knew was temple priest, local temple priest. But they brought primarily the monastic model, and we mixed it in most of the Zen centers in the United States with communities, because in the 50s and 60s there was rising interest in communities, people living together and working together. So we have a funny meld of monastic life and community life. So we have in this center monks who are married and have children. And we've been trying to work out that contradiction in terms. And it's a contradiction in time, because people want to meditate. They want to meditate the full schedule, which means an hour and a half or 2 hours in the morning, an hour and a half or 2 hours at night, and then anything they can fit in during the day, and then a 7-day retreat every month. But meanwhile, they have jobs and families that have to be taken care of. So there's always this pull and this tension between everyday life and the monastic practice. We've been trying to meld them together, and it's been difficult, and it's getting increasingly difficult, I think. And we're right now in a kind of adolescence where the form is going to change. We're growing up very rapidly, and I think the form is going to change.
Reciting the Jesus Shingandarani, we dedicate its merits to the major figure of this order, the great Jesus Bodhisattva, King of all vows, and his relations throughout the Dharma world. We especially pray for the health and well-being of our children. May they grow strong in the 3 treasures, and may our sincere vows to accomplish the Buddha way be realized together.
You were mentioning that the reasons that students come here is different from the reasons students come to a Zen center in Japan. And you said that one thing they do is come to work out their own personal problems. Do you think that the practice does do that for them?
In general, the answer could be said yes, but to some extent could be no, because according to the condition of one's than each individual, definitely this kind of discipline practice could be helpful to strengthen and reinforce one's own personality and character. And at the same time, it could be at the same time the negative outcome may happen. For example, if they're emotionally unstable to take this kind of rather than a strained practice, it might create a negative. So it's hard to say. So my answer is in a way yes and no.
Well, living together, we're discovering that things can't be ignored for very long. That if they're ignored and pushed down, eventually they're going to bubble their way up to the top. It's like a pressure cooker in a way. You can imagine 125 people living together from 4:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night, meditating together, eating together, working together, doing recreation together, sometimes vacationing together. Every moment of their life almost is spent together. The reason it works here is partly because the practice will out. The practice will bring to the surface the impurities, the things that need to be brought to the surface will come out eventually. And the other reason is that everything that happens is grist for the mill. It's turned back into the practice, so that if we have disagreements, we all consider that part of the practice, that the resolution of those disagreements is part of our practice. It cannot be ignored. It's exactly our practice to figure out, why am I angry? Where does that anger come from? To sit in the meditation hall, go into that anger, walk right straight into it and see what fear underlies that anger, because under anger is always fear. What am I afraid of? How does this threaten who I think I am and how things should be, my idea of how things should be, my control over this little piece of the world that I think I'm controlling? So that everything that comes up should be folded right back into the practice, and that's the reason that the community works. And that's an advantage of the community, that by the very pressure cooker effect, everything will come up to the surface eventually. The truth will out, as painful as it is sometimes.
Just before our video crew arrived at the Zen Center, some of these painful truths came out. The community collectively confronted an issue that many members had known about for years. Their leader was an alcoholic. At the time of this interview, Roshi had just returned from 2 weeks in an alcoholism treatment program, which he attended at the urging of his senior monks.
I have been drinking for the past maybe 30 years, and it's a kind of periodical drinker. Being a monk, having my position, they simply said I shouldn't drink. But somehow, raised in Japan, and so familiar with the social custom in which even we encourage drinking to some degree. I was just carrying that rather as a natural habit. Even though knowing it's not a desirable thing to do, I was so ignorant about it. See? And past few years, I started to notice my drinking start having effect on me, on many things, such as heart fever and distracted, and even tonight regarding personal issues like heart and mind, physical, mental, and even spiritual sort of condition, and the heart and mind family, and all kinds of defects are I am the very much remorseful. frankly speaking, I don't know how much I hurt the people, how much damage I did to them. And I don't know how much I can make it up. At least I am more than willing to try.
Roshi's alcoholism was a problem that he and the Zen Center community faced together. With the help of outside counselors, including a representative from Alcoholics Anonymous, the community members examined their own role in allowing this situation to develop, by idealizing the Roshi unrealistically and never questioning his actions. In probing this issue, the community faced another realization they had collectively ignored, that Roshi had been sexually involved with some of his women students.
Yeah, and I think it's true, like being alcoholic, become loose about morals. And I agree that the negative part should be closely observed and be aware of. Like myself, being alcoholic, I really don't know how much immoral thing I did. It's really atrocious.
Any of Roshi's students that have not seen him since yesterday morning may come to Doksan now.
The revelation of Maizumi Roshi's affairs caused a profound crisis within the community. Many Zen students, for whom Roshi had been part priest, part psychotherapist, and even part savior, felt that he had violated their trust and taken advantage of his position. Some students had idealized Roshi as an enlightened being, a kind of god, and were devastated to discover his very human vices. Many people who had devoted years of their life to studying with Roshi began to wonder if they had been wasting their time. On the other hand, some community members felt that Roshi was above all a great Zen master, and that his private life, including both his drinking and his affairs, was nobody's business but his own, and shouldn't be subjected to prying and criticism, or video documentaries. Although some welcomed our video crew, others felt strongly that we shouldn't be there. It was Roshi himself who insisted we be allowed to tell this story. Dozens of students left the center in anger and disillusionment, or just with the feeling that it was time to move on. Others stayed for intense emotional meetings about the crisis and the future of the community.
Yesterday was just like the worst day in a long, long time. We had the meeting down there, you know, and usually, you know, I'm like really intensely involved in those things, but I was like feeling extremely lonely and somewhat worried and anxious, you know. Like I left the meeting and just went home and went to sleep, which is really uncommon, you know. But about maybe, I don't know, early, maybe 4:30 or so, and I got up and just started doing zazen. And I just noticed how much sadness and grief was there, so I put on these headphones. I put on these headphones, and I turned the music up real loud on my stereo set, and I put on the headphones, and I just started sitting. And it's interesting, the headphones with all the loud music playing gives me this false sense of privacy, and I can allow myself to cry and let a lot of grief and sadness up. And I sat there for almost 2 hours, you know, just sadness and grief, you know, about leaving, not knowing what to expect, just came out. And it felt really good because as I went through that whole process, I got back in touch with the value of being here over the last 7 years. And it was really interesting. It was like the more I acknowledged that value that I got here, the more sadness and more grief came up, because I guess I felt somehow like I was really having to leave that somehow. But very good. I'm glad I'm at least going through that process,
I sort of knew some of this stuff as it was going on, and it just didn't seem that inappropriate to me, to tell you the truth. I mean, it seemed like the sort of thing that can happen, and if it's discreetly and carefully handled, maybe it's okay. I guess I'd never experienced firsthand how bitched up things can get, how hurt people can be and betrayed, and how much people can project their needs and suppositions onto other people and their behavior. And so it's been a real eye-opener for me. I had no idea that in 1984 in Los Angeles, matters of sexual conduct between adults of two different sexes would be so uproarious, and that's very naive of me.
Adding to the turmoil at the Zen Center was an increasingly uncomfortable relationship with the surrounding neighborhood. The Zen Center was a relatively well-off, primarily Anglo community, surrounded by a low-income Korean and Chicano district. Crime and gang violence were common, and the monks were often harassed on their way to and from the meditation hall. Many community members were leaving, feeling that they could no longer live in such an environment, especially considering the strains within the community.
that guy was nothing. Nothing. Compared to some of the people I've met.
Does it bother you living around here?
Yeah, that's why we're moving. My mom said something about that, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, we're moving. So.
Where are you going?
Better area, probably Santa Monica.
And it's because of the neighborhood, basically, that you're moving?
Basically. Also, it's because the Zen Center is slowly breaking up. Well, I won't say breaking up. But I will say some people are leaving and new people are coming. And so it's just sort of the natural progression of things, that some people leave and other people come. So we're leaving. It's not like we're discommunicating ourselves or something, you know, just going away and not talking to the Zen Center or anything. I mean, we're not leaving because of the Zen Center, but we're leaving because of the neighborhood. And just over there, a guy pulled a big 45 on me.
Wow, when is that?
Well, that was 2 weeks ago.
And actually, we had quite a nice sitting group in the town that we were living in. And it was time to leave there.
The departure of so many residents triggered a severe financial crisis for the community, and it began to look like the Zen Center's property, virtually an entire city block, would have to be sold and the community disbanded.
I hope it doesn't dissolve. You know, for me, the community is why I came here, and I think why one of the reasons I was able to accomplish what I came here to accomplish was because of the community. It's extremely valuable, and I feel like you do. It's going to be very sad, and it just may be that's the way it is. That it needs to dissolve so that it can rebuild maybe a little differently, a different structure. I think people will always live in a community, but maybe not the way we do it here.
Zen practice is about seeing clearly, and on one level, what was going on at the Zen Center during this time was simply a deepening of the practice. The crisis forced the community members to re-examine the purpose of their lives at the Zen Center, and for many of them, this process deepened their understanding of existence and accelerated the awakening they were pursuing.
Existing right here now.
Some people seem to feel that a lot of the reason people are leaving is sort of disillusionment, particularly with the teachers. Do you think that was a factor in your decision to go?
I think disillusionment is great, and I love the word disillusionment because it means to be disillusioned. You know, you stop being illusioned. You know, and from that point of view, I think that my relationship with the teachers has absolutely worked from that point of view. I've become disillusioned with them, and that's perfect. I'm glad that I've become disillusioned with them. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm really glad that I'm very disillusioned about that, because I don't feel particularly angry or resentful or bitter about that. I feel very free. You know, that the jig is up on that racket, that I don't have to do that one anymore.
What kind of illusions did you have?
Oh, I think very similar to the illusions that I had about Santa Claus, and that somehow they're going to save me or make me feel okay about myself, or if I could be like them, that somehow I would then be okay.
The Buddha said that wisdom and morality go together like two hands being washed. and a full realization is like clean hands. And you can't have just wisdom, because you can't wash one hand. It's just the same thing. You can't have just morality. You can't obey rules just directly. Just say, won't kill, won't steal, won't do this. Because at times, it may be definitely necessary to do those things. So you must have the wisdom with the morality together. And in that way, your understanding can be complete.
It's amazingly boundless a concept to think about the law of karma. I mean, in a way, it works on me just like that old, Christian fear of burning in hell if I don't live a good life and obey the Ten Commandments. I mean, when I really think about karma and the infinite rippling effect of my actions on everything, believe me, it makes me think twice about how I act. And that's, I think, been one of the great lessons that's happened in our community recently, is that we really saw that if we ignore the precepts, if we really ignore, these principles of life or aspects of life, we will pay for it. There will be a very exact retribution, because every cause has its effect. There's no escaping karma, ever, ever.
This is the last hour of sesshin, an intensive 7-day meditation retreat. Sesshin is a difficult and painful time, requiring full concentration and commitment. Participants meditate 10 or 12 hours a day, and near total silence is observed. Traditionally, Roshi would address the sesshin participants at the end of the retreat. At this sesshin, however, he invited them to share their thoughts as well.
Whoever wish to share about this session, please.
For me, I used to live at the center, and I haven't been here for many months to see the teachers. So this has been an important session to come again and check out who the teachers really are in my own subjective viewpoint. And I think I'm very encouraged. I think the teachers are going through a painful process, just as a Sangha is. And I see a lot of courage everywhere. And I also see a lot of genuineness and honesty in everyone. And it's occurred to me these past few weeks being down here that people are stronger and more real than I've ever seen them. And no matter what happens to the center, I think that we're all stronger and our practice better for this experience.
But it's a movement in practice. In other words, the first stage would be to see that that forms, meaning even the concept of myself, of I, and the sounds, every sound that we hear, and every form that we see, and everything that we touch, that basically that's empty. Now, what does that empty mean? We have to experience for ourselves what that emptiness means. But it means not having a fixed nature, always changing. It doesn't have a permanent self. In other words, things aren't built in this moment and then they last eternally. Nothing lasts. So that formless emptiness is just based on the principle of impermanence, that everything is changing. It doesn't have a fixed. Even I, And really, I did grow up thinking that, well, Elizabeth Harden is this person, right? It's this eternal entity. And I was born once on earth. I live and I die and then I go to heaven, right? That's what I learned. So I kind of grew up with an idea of myself as having a rather permanent being. that has this kind of personality, and that I'll exist for all time this way. Well, I mean, I can't buy that anymore because I just look at, you know, the erosion of everything, the constant birth and death of everything. I mean, Buddhism just asks us, just look, you know, and it will be obvious. But it's based on the fact that mostly we don't look, or else we avoid looking, because who wants to face death? But obviously, if we look, it's all around. It's empty. So, and then coming back from that, I mean, that might be seen as almost like a great negation, you know, or a great annihilation. And in a sense, it is the great negation to see that things are empty of themselves. But then we come back to a great, it's like affirmation. But empty, it's form, you know, and it's wonderful, and we enjoy it, and it's like everything proclaims life, you know, proclaims self, and so it's very affirming. It's very affirming.
Obsession for me is always dealing with the same thing, the turmoil that I put myself through, and this process of settling down and being at ease with the way things are. And I think really that's what the center is going through right now. We're in turmoil. But I really believe that we can settle down, because this practice is really what we all want to do, and I think we will find our way.
There's a real temptation to say, okay, it's fixed, everything back to normal, because we get tired and you get exhausted in this process. But I think as, you know, we get a little relief, and then we need to consolidate and use that to take the next step, to dig a little deeper. I mean, that's what our practice is. And so things are calmer now. I think y'all came just about at the peak. And of course, you're coming in added to it. And your being here and going through it with us and alongside us has also been a part of it. I mean, it's just getting to be, well, of course, when you have financial and emotional crises, you have a film crew, don't you? You know? So, film at 11.
I really mean it, even I say I'm grateful and I really appreciate your practice. See? Actually, it is only the reason I'm here to send the practice with you. If you are not here, then my existence itself is meaningless and useless. So, please accept my very heartfelt, honest feeling of my appreciation and gratitude to all of you. I realize that second, I am maybe too serious, and sometimes I really feel that I have lost almost a sense of humor, maybe because I am a big alcoholic. I don't know. But in a sense, when I reflect upon that kind of heart and a sort of room for the easement, no, it's not being at ease. When I think of that, see, like room for the humor, I feel that, see, like my such a serious, kind of almost like a blindly serious kind of concern about the Dharma itself, it seems to me, is a tragic comedy. And the humor that I'm really making all the time. And I want you to appreciate that. That is to be my concluding remark.
Japanese Air Command before Pearl Harbor. All right, you guys. Let's go in there and kill him. Kill him dead. Throw him out of the water. What our own guys. Suddenly Clint Eastwood steps out to the frame. Make my game. Make my What a bunch of goons.
That'd be awful.
Night of the Living Dead. This is San Quentin at midnight. Who planted this guy? Okay, at our time. Who planted this? Somebody a rhinoceros city that is. Slow fan. Slow fan. Is there any electric sparks?
Who is this masked man? I
See the guy with the pants on?
Guy.
Ah, there's someone masturbating. Someone in this room is lying. I got a stick for you, baby. No, Censors. Hey, get a shave and go out and get a job.
Check out the fingers again. We gotta see what's happening here.
I respectfully announce to everyone, since the parinirvana of the great Master Tathagata, until this year 1984, 2470 years have passed. When this day has passed, our days of life will be decreased by one. Like fish living in a little water, what sort of comfort or tranquility can there be? Let us practice diligently and eagerly as though extinguishing a fire upon our heads. Let us contemplate impermanence and not squander our actions. The buildings and the soil protect the Dharma and give peace to all. The Sangha in the 10 directions will increase in fortune and wisdom. For their sake, we sincerely vow to become one with pure
say something?
You said yesterday that no matter what we do, as long as we are not fully enlightened, it will create problems. Could you explain what you mean by problems? And could you, by way of illustration, tell us some of the problems you have experienced due to the fact that you accepted the invitation to come to Austria?
You said well. You said very well. This is an example of a problem. I knew someone was going to say that this morning about practice and enlightenment. Maybe satori. Being born as the shape of a human being, as a relative existence, like there is a thing to think about what is this conditioned state or limitation, so to speak. This opens up a very big subject of what you meant by fully enlightened. Absolute enlightenment, which is a characteristic of truth and innate being born as human. How much of truth is experienced by you? This is what I meant by possibility of originating of problem. I'm not talking good or bad. Problem is a subject to think about, work on it. In everyday life, we do not talk about the presence of absolute or experience
experience of your experience of presence of Absolute. Although it is main concern of everyone in their deep depths of life, we usually do not bring up in ordinary communication ground too sacred subject. Sacredness of subject is related to our faith or belief, not logical common knowledge. It is very extremely personal subject. To say personal, it's still too public. Which is true existence, your everyday existence, or only absolute one? That kind of very deep subject. The subject of personal enlightened experience is also matter same degree as I am talking about. For other people, your enlightenment is not so not so big deal, so to speak. Rather have enough survival money in your wallet. That's more important subject. So this sense of value of experience is a little different. But religious, spiritual subject of your existence when you become truly alone, nobody is thinking about you, and you also do not think about others. At that time, this subject comes up to you. Where you come from, this existence, each of your existence, where does it come from in the first place? Why you exist here, this light here, particular time and place. For what reason you are existing, and how long, which direction this existence is going to continue. And because of such alone state, without measuring standard, you don't know where you are at, which direction it is, why it exists. Everything becomes one big question. Although vivid, truly vivid sensation of existence you feel in time and space. That's what I feel. That's what I experience. I don't know how each of you feel about this. To be somebody on this earth. Full effort of knowing, measuring what this being is, quarter century, half century you spend time, but still not quite. You know almost every important information from wise people in the past or around you. Still not quite answer is final. Again and again we come back to this so to speak. So you say helpless feeling of cannot do much for yourself or others. While we do not know what we are. Is it a human being? Is it most aggressive animal being or endlessly suffering hell dwellers. We don't know. Sometimes we feel all of them. We define being human being is too highly evaluated. It's just the surface. Inside is nothing but fighter. Sometimes thirsty existence. To say we are child of the God or Buddhas is too ambitious definition. That's what I meant by the problem. before I came here, visited to El Camino Hospital in California. My dear friend, father, was in coma state, terminal cancer, and found out while we were flying abroad, he passed on a few nights ago. The message came, and already Paul was literally gone. When I visited 3 times every day. Feet was warm, hand was warm. Tried to open his eye. The oxygen tube in his nose. Tried to respond to my big call, and his eyes cannot open, couldn't be opened. Only one eye opened 1 second and looked at me. That was all. Closed eyes and again went to deep sleep. That was the last meeting. But I felt good. He was already gone, and it was about a matter of time. The heart stopped beating. I felt good because his body showed peacefulness, no more struggle. And I asked the nurse, is there any medication going on or not? No medication, just waiting. He and his wife was a Jewish, wonderful man and wife. Wife passed away about 7 years ago. Went to funeral. They adopted 2 children. My dear friend and another adopted was a girl, and they both now married and have been raising children and happily living. After he lost his first wife, he found another lady who loves to dance. Went to Jewish wedding, and I still remember they're already quite old, maybe around 65, 63 or 5. After retirement age, I still remember the dancing crazy after wedding. Very cheerful person. But that person and the person who was in the bed after long struggle with cancer feels a very different person. And wonder where is Paul right now? It's in Buddhist thoughts. He's supposed to looking for new birth somewhere. It is about 7th day now. Approaching the first week, and he has passed the. He just got out of the ship, a little boat, like a paramita boat. Giving some pennies to the sail. What do you call the sailmen who carry dead from
ferryman?
Ferryman. Ferryman. Maybe he's around here looking for the place.
Couples, watch out.
This dear friend, adopted son of Paul, is a very strange person. When I was living in California 23 years ago, my son was about coming, so wife was pregnant, big, and answered the doorbell, and here he is. Midnight, bare feet, dirty bare feet, bushy hair, long hair, jeans were many holes everywhere, and wanted to see me. So, still 18 years old he was. My wife was so upset. Strange person came, please answer. I was still up in my study. All right, so I went. Wife said, "Chase him away, please." You have too many strange people. I looked into his eyes and look terrible, but he's not crazy. I must talk with him. And then I my jacket on and took him for a walk, midnight walk to the downtown of Los Altos. looked at all stores closed. One bar called Teacup was open, so we sat on the counter and I had Irish coffee and he had juice. Shaved head, robe on it. Next is such a person. Everybody look at us and what he said is, I feel I'm enlightened and I don't know what to do with this. After sipping tea, he started talk like that. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that is very wonderful. I need a proof of it. If you show me proof of it, not how you appear, I need a proof of it. And he was a little stuck, cannot explain, because it's still going on with him. Week later, he came back with a little metal sheet in his hand. Again, the bare feet. I said, aren't you hungry? I didn't know what it was. Aren't you hungry? Yes, I am hungry. I mean, my wife is not here, fortunately. Until a few days before delivery, my wife worked in hospital as nurse. She's a work maniac. Big belly and goes around in Stanford Hospital. It was a night shift. That was the proof. That little thing was the proof. It was a chip of personal computer. I thought it was first I thought it's a chocolate or something. Many things are going, where I was going around. He said, I designed it. My friend also helped me. This is called Lisa. I named it Lisa, which is the name of his daughter, newborn daughter. That was the origin of Apple computer. And I'm still not quite sure that was a true proof or not. I bet you are using that Macintosh. Are there in this country? Sure. That was a story. As you know, that is to your question, it's a big problem. What he always says, want to join the session. Wherever I go, he always say, make me monk, please make me monk. I said, no, until proof. No. And always apologize me. He's a very bad student. Want to do it, but hesitant to join session. Brilliant, but too smart. I think he cannot sit more than 1 hour. No, 1 hour is enough. No machine. Someday he'll join. And this Lisa, the computer, but the girl is 13, 14 years old now. What makes me most happy is she feels me as a godfather, and whenever I visit them, she ran up to me and speak in Japanese. That is very wonderful. Maybe that is a proof. Let's change subject.
I'd like to know how can we understand why some people have many problems and hard time to practice and some don't.
Since people don't have problem, everyone has about equal amount of difficulty. I do. I think I'm a worst kind of person. Nothing happens even more than first sitting is 3 years old. My father taught me. My big brothers, 2 brothers, were ordained by my natural father. After chasing the firefly, we have a big temple pond, lotus pond. My father designed this garden. We were all small. Elder brothers came back with a lot of fireflies, and maybe I was about 5. Maybe about 5. Strange thing happened. Was in the sky from the temple cemetery. There is a very big bluish purplish ball of light came and through one leap of this light And we said, oh, look at that, look at that big firefly. And my father told us it was a it's a ghost, spirit. He said that is a spirit. It's a natural phenomenon. Today you don't have this. You have. Do you know what it is? When you read old story, burial ground, this thing happened. We call it ring. In a low temperature, this thing burns and make this pale, green, blue, purplish light.
Nordlicht. Nordlicht. It's only on cemeteries, isn't it? Yeah, I know.
It is an element of our body.
Gases, maybe?
Yeah,
we finally, later I studied what it was, and it was all wearing this thing and fly in the sky. Owl, the bird. That evening was the first lesson of Zazen we got. 3 of us sitting in the porch. And my father was 60 years old. Came back from hospital after surgery of stomach cancer. He was looked like very old to me. After eating little cookie, he taught us how to cross leg. And we compared who's the best posture. I could do full lotus without using hand. So I was the best. And eldest brother showed he can walk with full lotus. Literally, he go get up on the full lotus and start walking. What I wanted to say is, since that today until today, no enlightenment experience. Too bad. One time I did the Doksan with Kodo Sawa Kiroshi and asked about this supreme enlightenment. He said, "Don't rush," he said. Go slow. So I'm going very slow. Sometimes sitting feels wonderful. Most of the time, before and after sitting is more wonderful.
You were talking about enlightenment and that you haven't had it yet or whatever. So where does all this satori thing come from? Is it just to keep people going? So you always tell them, oh, you read it there, you read it there. Is it just so that people think, maybe there is something that keep going and keep going? Or do you know what I mean? Where does it come from? I mean, well, you say, I haven't had it. Nobody says he ever had it. But you read it everywhere. Just so that people keep practicing?
That's it.
That's tricky.
It's like seek of paradise, utopia, and like Moses was a little bit too short-tempered, he missed it. Personal enlightenment experience, I think it's happening all the time, but no one can see it. I mean, no one else can see your enlightenment experience. If this life is momental and it's constantly sparkling, that constancy makes that thing look subtle, solid existence. But who knows? It's just if enlightenment is a misunderstanding, like putting fifth degree to fifth dimension to third dimension and think that is it. That's just misunderstanding. So I started to put it aside and do not poke. Someday it might show what it is. It feels nothing but what exists is nothing but awakening, enlightenment, and all of us experience it, part of it, all the time, every second. That's how I started to understand these days. To meditate is to widen it, broaden it, and concentrate is to ignore most of it except a very small portion of it.
There's a lot of care being taken to preserve our health. There's beginning to be care to preserve our planet. People are coming to the consciousness that is needed to address these external social problems. And that's good. But even if those go to even greater lengths than they are going to now, if we don't take care of the problem within ourselves, it's not going to work. No matter how much external work is done, if what's been happening inside isn't being repaired, it's not going to help. It's not going to help the inner problem. The inner problem is something that each person has to do for themselves. And that is the problem of the heaviness of the ego. There is no one who doesn't feel that. We can in these days say, I want something delicious to eat, and we can get it. I want to wear these clothes, and we can put them on. I want to do this with my time, and we can do it. That's possible for anybody. But when it comes to being uncomfortable with our egoistic heaviness, who knows how to rid ourselves of that? When we feel we are too self-aware and self-conscious, and living on our own small energy instead of a greater, larger picture, we don't know what to do about that. And it's the uncomfortability generated by these inner problems that brings about a lot of our external problems. And of course, we can solve those external problems by getting what we want to eat, or by doing something that we enjoy doing. But in the end, we will always return to this place within ourselves where we are uncomfortable with our own egoistic, narrow self. And this is true with more and more people. This is what the real problem is. And for that reason, we have Zazen. For that reason, we have this practice that is designed to dig in and dig out that ego, to find that place where it isn't happening, to get rid of that filter, to cut away, shave away, dig into the deepest possible roots, and find that place where the water of clear mind is flowing freely. But we can't do that unless each of us does it for ourselves. It can't be done by some kind of external aid. Each person has to do it. And when people look at what we're doing here, for example, doing a sesshin, they think, what a narrow, rigid, difficult way of going about it. But compared to living all your life in this egoistic bind, it's not. The things we're doing here, sitting in this posture, living in this sesshin way of living, clearly it is a very, very rigid and tight, restrictive way of looking at how to live. But it's for the purpose of going to the place where our ego isn't directing our life. For realizing that place where that huge, clear mind freely originates from. To be able to realize that, we have to cut away all of that egoistic noise, all of that external stimulation, and return to that base, where that huge, clear, liberated mind comes from. It's for accomplishing that we live in this way. And when we do that, when we return to this place where we can feel our center free from having to be told what to do by that ego, free from having to be controlled by that ego, then we can take that mind back out into our life in the outside world, and we can start dealing with the external problems from the inside out rather than the outside in. And that's the only way that we are really going to be able to get rid of this egoistic heaviness anyway. And it is for that reason that doing Zazen is so important. To dig into that ego, to root it out, to dig it out at its deepest roots. That is why we have this practice. And for doing that, we are doing Zazen and practicing in Sesshin. When I was young, I wasn't very different from any other kid. I had a very typical kind of childhood. But there came a time when I had to face that dilemma, like all children do, of what I should do with my life and what it should be about. You see, my father was a temple priest, and it was typical then in Japan to do what your father does. Most kids willingly accepted that and went along with that. But I had a great deal of resistance to the idea. It wasn't that I was required to be my father's successor as head of a temple, since I had an older brother. But it was more simply because I just didn't feel like doing that. I always resisted that feeling that I was going to become a priest and be taking over a temple. Instead, I was going to become a psychologist. And the reason I wanted to become a psychologist was because I didn't like myself. There were parts of myself that I really had a hard time dealing with. I couldn't take myself the way I was. I thought the fastest way to fix that was to become a psychologist myself. I wanted to remake those parts of myself that I felt were so contrary to what I saw in other people. I thought becoming a person who could understand people's inner workings was the best way of fixing myself. Well, one day my father asked me to go to my school in Kyoto a little early to do an errand for him. And because I went early, the buses were very, very crowded. I had to push through this packed crowd of people to get onto the bus, and then all the way to the back of the bus to find a seat. And all of a sudden, as I pushed through all these people, I came upon a person who looked like someone I had never seen before. He struck me as a most unusual, a very mysterious person. And he was wearing a robe unlike any I had seen before. It was dyed a mud color, like they wear in India. And he had a presence, a face, that was of such a nature that it was like he was shining or brilliant. And I was astonished by this man sitting there in the middle of this completely busy and full bus, just reading a book. People were standing up and sitting down, but he was completely unconcerned with any of that, but just reading a book in deep concentration. And I just felt that this man was completely different, like no one I had ever seen before. When I looked at his face, it was shining and bright, and the clarity of his face and the sharp features of it made everyone else's face in the whole bus look like kind of murky or clouded. And I had never met or seen a person like this before, and I couldn't figure out what it was that was so amazing about him. But what I did know was that I found it very confusing. As a person who hated temples and hated priests, here I was astonished by a person who was dressed in priest clothing. There I was, having been brought up in a way I didn't want to continue, thinking that temples and priests were really out of it. And there was this person who I thought had this mysterious presence, who was dressed like a priest. And the thing I remember most was trying to figure out why this person, with all this great depth and mystery, would choose this way of expressing himself. That was to me a very big question at the meeting of this man. So I was so entranced and intrigued by this man and the question he was presenting to me by his whole presence, that when the priest got off, I followed him. And come to find out, it was the very same stop where I was supposed to get off. And it turned out that this person, Yamada Mumon, was the president of the Buddhist college, and he was on his way to Reiyunin, a small Buddhist temple in Miyoshinji. I followed him right to the gate and saw him go in. I became aware of something that was very important then. I realized that psychology wasn't the way to go about it. I saw that the people who were psychologists were human beings just like their patients. And it seemed clear that the state of that human being's mind, the state of the therapist's mind, was going to affect how the patient was treated or how the patient was able to take care of their own treatment. I read that as a therapist, if you didn't have a great expansive mind, then you couldn't be of any use to the patient. In psychology, you have data, and you have different responses from the patient. But if the doctor doesn't have this great wide mind, it's not going to work. So I was thinking to myself, how am I going to get this big, great mind? I didn't even like my own personality. So how could I become great and expansive? And here I was concerned with this problem, worrying about whether or not I was going to be able to do it or not. And right at that moment, I encountered Mumon Roshi, a great, huge mind right in front of me. And by meeting that person, I realized that doing psychology, to study all these things scientifically, learn how to gather data and experiments and tests, is not the point. To become a person of a great, round, expansive mind is the point. And there is a faster way. Instead of studying psychology, to become that mind is faster. And that's what changed in me when I saw Mumon Roshi. From that time, in fact for 30 years, I stayed with this man who became my teacher, all through high school, at the Buddhist high school, at the Buddhist college, through training in the monastery where Yamada Mumon Roshi was the head training Roshi. Up until today, I've continued, even though Mumon Roshi has passed away, I have continued to receive his teaching. And I can say without any question that what has changed my life and totally put it in the direction that it is in now is this meeting with this one person. Where in the past we each could just consider our own needs and be aware of what the small world around us was requiring, we're now approaching a time when we can't do that anymore. The world is just too connected, just too full of things that are connecting all of us. For example, the amount of information that comes into everybody, it gives us the sense of not needing to judge things for ourselves anymore. We're always being told what to do, what to wear, how things should happen. And in the midst of that, there is the sense that while we need more than ever to connect with other people, we are being more isolated from them. In the same way that our family situation is breaking down, people have fewer and fewer people to really share their hearts with, to really embrace them in the warmth of a family. People's lives have really taken on a sense of isolation, without any way to express how miserable that makes them feel. And along with all of that comes all the business of life, because of all the media, because of all the information, because of the pace of things happening right now. In the middle of this isolated, uncomfortable mind, we are walking around in a world that is so busy, we can't even find time to find out what it is in our mind that is making us so discontent and unhappy. And in order to somehow assuage that feeling, we go into entertainment that has so much stimulation that we're just kind of numbing ourselves to all of that. Or we become intoxicated on things like drugs or alcohol, or a hobby that takes us away from thinking about how unhappy we are inside. Our world has become a place where we are always avoiding facing the core issue and dealing with what's really, really our true nature. Instead, we try to find some kind of satisfaction in an external world outside of ourselves. This is what almost every person is continually walking around trying to do in the midst of this really busy, terribly stimulating time. Even as we sit here in this quiet, beautiful dawn, around us all possible extraneous noises are happening. And it's not a time when you can run away from those noises anymore. Where you are is where they're happening. So the problem is what to do within that noise. We have a great need to be able to find that place in ourselves where there is no scenery at all. That quiet place within where you can just sit and relieve yourself of all the burdens, of all the overstimulation and the busyness and the things that are happening all the time. To just go inside to a quiet place. How many people can really let go of their anxious mind, let go of their busy mind, let go of all those noises and things passing by them all the time? How many people can say that they have moments when they are completely serene, free of all their insecurity, without anxiety, peaceful, and at one with themselves? This is the true state of all human beings, a state that we all have within us, a state that needs nothing else but being alive to make us completely joyful. But how easily have we forgotten that that's all we need, thinking we need so many other things, and convinced by the media and pulled away from that recognition by society. How easily have we forgotten that completely satisfied and perfect place within us that is always with us. To be able to return to that place is what human beings need right now, more than in any other time. To be able to find this place within ourselves, to touch down with our true nature, to return to that ultimately clear mind, which we all, every single one of us, has to begin with. To return back there, to learn how to return to that place and find complete serenity within any given moment is what is the most necessary thing to understand because of the times we're living in. When you are sitting in the posture of Zen, the first thing that you do is make your posture solid. You don't sit in a vague, unsettled way. You make your legs set firmly. You put your right leg up first, your left leg on top of that for the full lotus. And you make a very firm posture, with the bottom of your lower back being the other part of the triangle that your two legs make. And with that very firm base, You raise your spine up. It is very important to make your spine raise up straight and naturally without having any tension in it, so that your whole body is relaxed and there's a natural feeling to it. With that naturally stretched up feeling, you then feel a solidity in your whole body, which allows you to do your breathing in a natural way. Now usually we call a natural breath one that is coming from our lungs. But breathing from our lungs tends to be a rather intellectual kind of breath. It's a high breath. So we breathe for Zazen when we don't want to be intellectual in our abdomen. We breathe from a place about 1 inch below our navel. As we breathe, we allow our breath to travel down to our navel. We follow it down to the place below our navel, to our tanden. And we do it in such a way that it's a relaxed flowing breath, not a tight forced kind of breath. This kind of breathing is very important because if we are trying to clear our mind and we don't have this kind of breath, we will just be fighting intellectual things. So we breathe, allowing it to come down, and at the same time keeping everything very, very relaxed, not tightening or pushing into the breath, but letting this breath as if we are blowing it into that area in our lower abdomen. This abdominal breathing is very important and has been found in all the breathing instruction from the time of the Buddha, in yoga, through the Chinese Taoist practices such as Tai Chi and Qi Kung. All of them have given us the same kind of point to follow in our breathing. And by doing this, we bring all of our center of energy to that area. To gather any kind of true energy, we have to breathe in this way. And if we can bring our breathing to this place, we can dislodge ourselves from that cluttered mind that we all are being pursued by all the time. Only by doing this kind of breathing can we clear this mind of all the thoughts that are preventing us from realizing our pure nature. Realizing this pure nature is the point of doing Zazen, but if we don't have this kind of breathing, then this kind of practice won't be possible. So once we have our breathing with our concentration always focused on our tanden, then we can work on clearing our mind by keeping our breath always coming down to this tanden area, keeping it smooth, flowing out long, and breathing in that way. What we are doing when we bow and prostrate is something that everyone needs to do. Probably most people can't even imagine that this is possible, but in fact we are bowing to that pure nature which is in all human beings. And that is something that everyone who comes to Zen is working with and towards, to be able to realize that connection, that awareness of the world as something that is unified. Now, if you were to tell someone to bow to someone they don't like, then they would probably have a very hard time bowing to someone they don't like. But that is not the point. We are bowing to that part of all human beings that is able to be clear, pure, and well-developed. Our purpose is to make ourselves smaller than that great mind that exists within all of us. That is the purpose of doing prostration. To put your forehead down on the ground where everyone walks. This is an expression of the awareness of that cleared state of mind that we get through Zazen. Once you realize that all people are equal and unified, what do you do to express it? You prostrate. Because in that prostration itself is expressed that awareness that there is a mind that is greater than your own small ego. But like I said, people who feel that they will bow to something they like and not bow to something they don't like, almost 100% of them won't bow to something they don't like. That's how they see it, as a choice and a preference. But when they understand that it is something they are doing because they truly want to realize that pure, clear mind by getting rid of their ego, then they can do it. Because you must let go of that ego in order to bow that low. By bowing and prostrating, you are crushing the ego. You are breaking the ego. So bowing and prostrating is a sign of, a practice of, an expression of the breaking of that ego. And that is the purpose for which people of all countries and all nationalities are doing the Zen practice. But they have to understand why they are doing it, what it represents, that it is not bowing down to some idol. If you do Zazen and you realize this true, pure mind, then you do prostrations to express it, to manifest it, to reveal it. And once people reach the point where they can understand what it is for, then they realize that it is the true religious principle that is uniting all people and which can be guiding everyone at the same time. I went into the monastery, I thought it would be different for me. I thought I was going to go in there and be enlightened right away. I wasn't going to go in there and wait around for enlightenment, like everyone else who was just there hanging out, not taking it seriously, not getting to the point. I was determined that I was one of the chosen ones who was going to get immediately enlightened when I went into the monastery. So I went into it wholeheartedly, totally, intensely, giving everything I had to it. And when it came to the Rohatsashin, a meditation intensive which honors the Enlightenment Day of the Buddha on the 8th day of December, a time when the energy and the burning intensity of the monks in the monastery is so hot you can almost feel it in the air. When I entered the Rohatsashin, I was determined that during this sesshin I would reach enlightenment. I wasn't going to wait around like those other guys who weren't getting enlightened in the monastery. I was going to go for it, and it was going to happen now. So I came to the sesshin, the first day, second day, third day, the fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day. Still no enlightenment. I sat as hard as I could, everyone did, but still no enlightenment. And it came to the 8th day, when everyone is supposed to be sharing in the wonder of the enlightenment experience in the same way the Buddha did on his day of enlightenment, when he realized his own true nature upon seeing the morning star. And still nothing happened. And for the first time I was completely frustrated, disappointed. I didn't know what to do. When it came to the ceremony that honored the Buddha's enlightenment, I was beside myself with despair. Here I had thought that I could really do it, that I had planned to, I had decided I was going to, that I had been chosen, and it didn't happen. Never had I felt such great disappointment, and I had no idea what to do next. After that sesshin, I kept going for another year, and then a year after that, and still I did not have any deep enlightenment experience. And so then, after 2 years without a deep enlightenment experience, I went to my teacher, Mumon Roshi, and I said, "I'm leaving. I can't do it here. It's not working. I'm going away to sit by myself." And Mumon Roshi looked at me for a long time, and he said, "That's fine. You can go. But what happens if you don't get enlightened?" And I answered him, "I'll think about that when it doesn't happen." I took everything out of the monastery. I left prepared for never coming back, and I headed for the mountains. And I went here and there in the mountains, sitting by myself, sitting as hard as I could, not even knowing what day it was, not even knowing how much time I was spending there. I just went and sat and sat and sat in various places in the mountains. And I remember well this one place when I was between Yamaguchi Prefecture and Hiroshima Prefecture. I was sitting on top of this one mountain. I hadn't seen anyone for many days, and suddenly someone was coming up the mountain. Of course, in the mountains, people are friendly to each other, because there are not so many people in the mountains. I was doing zazen there, and they came up to me and asked if I was a person of training. And I told them yes, I was. And they asked how long I had been there and what I was doing. And then they told me how lucky I was. And at these words I was so deeply struck that my whole life was again changed. They said to me, "We are also a kind of people of practice. We do the chanting of the Buddha's name. But we aren't lucky like you that we can take our whole life and give it up for training. We have to work from Monday to Saturday. And in our tiny time of freedom from Saturday night to Monday morning, we come up on the mountain and practice our chanting of the Buddha's name. But you are so lucky. You are able to devote your whole life to training. And we're so envious of you that you are able to do that." And at that I was completely knocked out. I realized the deep meaning of what they were saying. For them it was quite straightforward and nothing at all particular. But it made me realize what I had been missing. I had been doing, in my own small, narrow way, exactly what I wanted to do. What they were having to do was within a social situation of having to work, having to keep their training going, having only a very small amount of time to devote to it totally. And here I was, already blessed with this chance to give everything I had to training, to devote myself completely to training. And I was running away from that and cutting myself off, shutting myself up in a small, narrow place in my mountain training all by myself. And I realized right then the mistake I'd been making. And I went right back to the monastery. I knew what I had to do now. And at that moment it was like all of my burdens dropped off, as if someone had hit me on the back and everything was awakened within. I realized that there was nothing I needed to do for myself in the first place. If every moment that came along I just took it as it was, then there was nothing that could be a problem to me anymore. That small, narrow way in which I had been looking at my enlightenment, my thing to have to do. I have to do this for myself. That is what had been bothering me all along, from the very beginning, through that day on the mountain when I realized that there was no self to be bothered with it. I had been crushing myself and making myself miserable worrying about this problem of my enlightenment and realizing it for myself, making myself come to a conclusion that was in fact found in the living of every single day. If I did nothing, if I didn't even worry about my own problems, things always came to me. And those things that came to me in every single day, to accept those was my training and my way of expressing my enlightened mind. No matter what it was that came to me every day, the next thing that came, the next situation I found myself in, to live that totally as my training was what I had to do. Not to go isolate myself up on a mountain, closed off from everyone, turning them all away, and worrying about my own small state of mind. That wasn't the point at all. But to go and be what every day brought to me, that was my practice and my expression of my enlightenment. And ever since I realized that, my whole life has been completely different. I know there is no problem for myself, because there is no one there to feel that there is a problem. Just to take what every day brings and do that with my best, total, wholehearted effort as a person of practice, that was the way to live. Often enlightenment or kensho or satori is considered to be some kind of unusual experience or something external or some kind of special phenomenon. But it's not like that. There may be some kind of sudden revelation or some kind of sudden perception, but it's not something that is that unusual or that strange and foreign that we come upon or that comes upon us. What it is an ability to see without any interruption of the ego, without any filtering of the ego. And since we are all walking around seeing things through our ego filter almost all the time, to suddenly be able to see without that filter is a surprise. But it is nothing that we have ever not had. They say that the mind of a baby is something we can compare this to. A baby isn't seeing things from the egoistic place. It is seeing directly and clear. It's the exact same kind of thing when we are seeing without the ego filter. We see that there is nothing to be analyzed in it. When you are seeing a flower, you're not thinking that it's red. Or seeing a bird, you're not thinking what its name is. You are just seeing directly. When we talk about enlightenment, we are talking about that mind which is perceiving in every moment without the obstruction of an egoistic filter. The experience of that mind and realizing where it is and realizing where it is coming from is what is called enlightenment or kensho or satori. It is not some kind of supernatural state of mind that we are able to enter or that comes upon us. It is not like some kind of altered state of consciousness. To think that we are trying to do this practice for some kind of narrow experience for the individual, thinking that we are going to come upon some big experience someday. This is a very low-level understanding of what this enlightenment is. It's a return to our basic state of consciousness, which we possess all the time but are always cluttering up with extraneous views and with the ego. The ego is consistently on top of us. It's always, always there. And if we can succeed in clearing it out, what we can see without it is truly surprising. And that kind of surprise, that kind of wonder, that kind of enjoyment and joyfulness is obvious, and it does truly happen. The difference for that ego is a big difference, but it's not something we come to externally. It's something we come to internally. We realize it by getting rid of things, not by adding on an abnormal state. And once we realize this state, once we recognize this, we say, ah, this is that mind that is without all of those things. And then to live every moment without that egoistic filter on that inner eye, that is what has to be done. That is the real goal. And that is the larger part of our training practice. Once we have recognized that new way of seeing, that new eye, an inner eye, once we have encountered that, then we must nurture the ability to encounter every moment of our lives from that clear, pure place. To live in that is the most important part of the practice. To be able to take that clear mind, which is not covered by ego, and keep that going. To live in that place all the time, that is what has to be done. And until we know what it is, we can't keep it going. So that first understanding of where that clear place is often what people sometimes call enlightenment, or kensho, or satori. But to be able to come to every moment with that state of mind, that is what's most important. We need this clear, pure mind because everyone is so far beyond knowing what to do about the terrible situation they are in. And this is true on many different fronts. For example, people used to be able to believe in God. In the olden days, there was a real sense of belief in something, for children especially, and you could really take that in and find comfort and guidance and direction in it. But nowadays, people who are really able to believe in God, not just go to church for some functional reason or because it looks good socially, but actually have that belief, are blessed with that belief, and are very few. Instead, what has come to replace that is a belief in science and technology, the worlds that are bringing our lives to a convenient place, where things can be produced and understood analytically and scientifically. This instead is what people are counting on and being reconfirmed by. But science and technology are filling our world with a lot of technical, material riches without giving us anything spiritual. They have taken away our ability to believe in something which was not able to be seen with our five senses and replaced it with nothing more than material advantage and convenience. We have all these machines that are making our lives a lot easier. We have a lot of things that we can relate to in terms of comfort or production. But what has been lost? What hasn't been given back? Look at economics. Economics supposedly helps to solve our problems by giving us more money or making our world more stable financially. But people believe in this economical thing more than they believe in something which is to be found within themselves. Economics is concerned with external things, and it is external things that we are always concerned with and talking about. But external things cannot fill the void created by the loss of our ability to know what a God is, or even to believe that a God is possible. For example, look at the workplace. The work in the old days was done by people who were doing apprenticeships. They were learning to make very fine quality material. Things that are made now by the hundreds each day were once made one at a time, after many long years of apprenticeship, and may have taken months or even years to make only one of good quality. Today, things are not made with the same kind of quality because science and the economics of scale can produce hundreds of them that are just as convenient in the same amount of time. No one cares, except in a very few special cases, how it is being made or the heart it is being made with. And people who come to a company, they're all the same. Just because someone has been there for 10 years and can make it in a better, more intuitive, well-crafted way doesn't make any difference because it is all being produced automatically. So someone who comes into the company that day is the same as someone who's been working there for 20 years. If they can just learn how to use the machinery, there is no difference between them. So that respect, that caring, that really meaningfulness in a hand-produced product has disappeared. Some people do feel it, but that overall way of life is not common anymore. And then we get to these factories. The idea of making such huge establishments. Smaller companies have to join together to make one huge mega company in order to survive. And then within that one company you have competition. You have this company all divided into little groups, each of which has one part of the automation line. And those little groups are competing with each other. So people are looking at each other as someone to compete with, not people to be one with or to connect to. And then from there we go to the home, which is loaded with all kinds of information. And if you don't have that information, you can't keep up with your job. You can't compete with that other part of the company who's doing things and trying to do them better than you. You have this kind of constant stimulation of information, not in a creative way that allows you to be creative and imaginative, but rather in a dictatorial way, telling you what to do, how things should be done, and how the world is. Instead of letting you create and be full of a world which is imagined and full of possibility for each individual person, you get bombarded with all this different information about how things are on the outside, how what is going on is going on. And then in the home, instead of living as a group, connected, everyone has their own television in their own room. Getting together and working out what to watch is not popular. Everyone goes to their own room and watches what they want to watch. And everyone has their own telephones. Instead of waiting for the next person to finish and making your own phone call, it's very convenient to have your own telephone for your own phone call. And this brings about a tremendous amount of loneliness and melancholy and despair. In isolation in your own house or your own company or your own world, you get into a car. Everyone has their own space, their own room, their own television, their own telephone. You get into a car, and when you close the door, it's your own space. It could be two people from the same family, but when they come to an intersection, they're enemies. Whoever gets their foot on the pedal first, goes first. That kind of egoistic driving and being competitive with everyone instead of cooperating and living together with them is just everywhere. And we go on from that to just how people are with each other. This competitive way of trying to get what you need ahead of everyone else. The world, for example, is divided. People fight against each other across lines that don't even exist. These lines of countries, which have been invented by the ego on the earth. There is no line on any kind of natural ground that says, this is this country, that is that country. There is no line on the ocean that says, this is this country's territory, this is that country's territory. Only human ego with its relentless urge to make things our own, trying to compartmentalize, trying to compete. Only this ego has made this kind of constriction of our earth, this division of this earth happen. It doesn't even exist in reality. Only people's egos and protective energy and territorial feelings have made those lines become accepted and real, and made everyone deal with them. This kind of thing just makes our dilemma of being isolated and miserable and feeling lonely deeper and deeper all the time. And what is there to do about this? All of these problems are being loaded upon us without any alternative for finding a place where we can be connected, for finding a place where we can come together to feel the original mind we are all endowed with. We're clearly aware when we realize that true mind of how we are all connected, whereas everything in society, everything around us is stating to us how separate we are and pushing us apart from each other. Therefore, to be able to come back to that place, which is beyond that egoistic push, competitive push, isolating rigidity, to realize that mind which sees things directly, truly as they are, not in the sense of ego, which is separating and disconnecting everything. To be able to come to that mind, where that clear, huge, great, embracing mind is possible, is what is most necessary right now. That's why this practice is necessary right now. This expansive mind, this mind that sees directly, knows the all-inclusiveness, is aware of the connection between everything. Because when you get rid of that ego, that's all you see, is one unified whole. That connection of everything in one's being is what is apparent when that ego has gone away. But as long as we all hold on to our ego, because we are forced to by what society demands of us, unless we free ourselves from that and return to this clear mind, we will never be able to solve that suffering and that deep anguish that comes from our separation from everything, including each other. For this reason, this possibility of a way to get out of that ego bind, to relieve ourselves of that, and get back to that true mind, which is clear and huge and all-embracing, is very, very important right now. When I came back from the mountain, I knew from what had happened there exactly what I had to come home to and what I had to do. I understood that until that time, I had been sitting and living with a very small, egoistic idea of what it was I was doing all this for. It had been an egoistic urge that had carried me to the mountains in the first place, even though what I was trying to do was to reach a deep enlightenment experience. So when I came back to the monastery, I didn't have that sense anymore. I knew then that my life wasn't about my own problems. Those problems didn't exist. What I had to do with my life was to live it totally with the purpose of bringing this crystal awareness to other people. That's all I really wanted to do. And that was in fact what I had been doing from the beginning, but I had closed it down in an egoistic, small way. I had gone to the mountain for only my own enlightenment. It had been an expression of my ego. But because of that, I had been able to awaken to that greater purpose, awaken to that greater self that had work to do in this world. And so when I came back, my zazen also became very different. Before, when I sat, I would sit with a very strong sense of myself being there, a heaviness. Now I didn't have that at all. I was sitting there being lived through by another great energy. And for the first time, my eyes would be placed where I was focusing, and they wouldn't move. They would be drawn into the floor where I was looking. And when I was doing kihin, walking meditation, my gaze would just be straight and not feel like looking anywhere else, drawn into where I was looking. And this went on for several days. And this brought me to a place where I could answer koans a lot faster. I clearly knew what my teacher was saying to me. The things that had been stopping me before weren't stopping me anymore. Those things that had been in the way, obstructing me, weren't there anymore. And I saw how well I could understand what my teacher was saying regarding the koans and the words I was given as I passed through the koans. I could grasp them very quickly, and they seemed more obvious to me. And I knew because of the way things were going that my sitting went much, much more lightly. I was there energetically, but I wasn't heavy anymore. What had happened to me on the mountain had turned my life around and had changed me in that time. Just because we sit in Zazen doesn't mean that our mind will naturally, because of that, become clear and empty of any egoistic filter. But by beginning in that way, we can come to this place where we are able to think of others more than ourselves. Human beings in general are always centered on what their own needs are, what is good for them, what is best for them, and have very little time to consider what's better for other people. Because of this, we have people all the time struggling and bumping into other people's wishes, and feeling that what they want is more important than what someone else wants. In fact, the time when the Zen teaching has been most popular has been the times when there has been the most struggle among human beings. Only with this kind of practice can a mind become wide and expansive beyond what the ego wants all the time. Our minds, no matter how hard we try not to be, no matter how hard we try to control them, our minds are continually bombarded by egoistic wishes, by egoistic expressions, by egoistic things that just come out of nowhere. Therefore, along with the breathing and the posture, we have to practice the concentration, which comes with the exhalation. As we exhale to that very final point, we count a number, always with the breath in your tanden, breathing out the final most possible point in your breath, never letting go of your concentration, keeping always focused on that no matter how many different thoughts come in, letting go of them, not worrying about them, not giving attention to them, but just focusing on that breath. And if you do that over and over again, keeping the top of your body relaxed, keeping yourself solid so that your breath can come out without a lot of motion that's distracting you, keeping your breath always coming out to that very last point from your abdomen. If you breathe from a high place, if you breathe up here only, then it tends to make it even more emotional. And being ruled by emotions and your ego is not the point. You are trying to go in the opposite direction from that. So keeping your breath low is very important. If you can develop that breath by doing it over and over and over, not just on the cushion, but in all places of your life, you come to a state of mind where your mind is truly wide and open. And when you come to this open state of mind, because you have become clear and serene within yourself in this kind of sitting, you've reached the point where the breath goes on for a long time, and you've come to that place where the egoistic noise is quieted. Those egoistic noises don't ever go away, but we don't pay attention to them anymore. And when you keep focusing on your breath and not paying attention to them, what comes is this huge, expansive state of mind that was there from the very beginning. And so you are able to live. The more you practice, the more easily it comes. You come to it, this state of mind. And by living in this state of mind, you are able to let go of that small-minded view of what's best for you and think, what does this person need? What does this situation want? What is the most appropriate way to behave right now? What can I do for this? Not what can this do for me, and how can I be helped by this situation? Rather, what can I do to help others in this situation? It comes naturally in that case. And this is just exactly what this world needs right now. This world is so scrambled up like other times in history because everyone is just flaunting their desires, flaunting their egoistic ways of thinking about things, saying what they want to say about anything that their opinions are strong about, and discussing that, instead of letting go of all that, and just becoming this huge, wide mind that embraces everyone, and allows them to do what they need to do, allows them to get what they need, letting go of your own needs, knowing that those things aren't what is so important, not because you are trying or think you have to, but because when your egoistic clutter is dissipated, there is no longer a need to defend and go for that stuff anymore. You can let go into the huge mind that is really there for everyone. Many people may wonder how just sitting there and doing this kind of counting, how that is going to get you to this place where you could get rid of this ego, which is so strong and which is always numbing your real feelings and your larger mind. But in fact, if you just sit, become a fool to it, repeat it, go on with it, continue, it is guaranteed that breathing from the tanden, exhaling as long as you can, and then inhaling naturally, will get you to that place where that mind is wide and expansive. And if you can get to that place, then living your everyday life will be full of that kind of energy and that kind of width and breadth. And in fact, the energy in that width and breadth comes from that kind of breathing. People say it's foolish just sitting down like that, but it isn't a matter of doing it because someone is telling you to. Sitting in this posture and doing this kind of aligning of your breath and mind wouldn't have been done for this many centuries if it didn't really get you to a place that was this important. So it may seem like a small thing, and people may decide not to practice because they don't believe in it. But you just have to become a fool in this practice and go on with it, continuously and repetitively, and without allowing any gaps. If you do it in this way, then this huge mind comes of its own. And if you sit in this way, then you come to this place, and you naturally want to share it with other people. And if other people can see this, and understand that it is possible to realize their true nature in this way, then they are going to want to develop this kind of mind too. And in that way you are passing it around just by becoming it. You may ask, what good is this small, clear state of mind for solving the problems of humanity, if we are only one mind in many? But what other way is there to do it? If one person becomes clear, and the things that are usually confused and complicated in the outside world can be seen by them in their clearest way, then that way of seeing things is passed on to everyone around them. And the world begins to become easier to deal with and clearer for everybody who can stay in this widened mind. And that passes around to others. And in this way, the purpose of Zazen, this focused practice, is to bring all of us to this more peaceful, centered way of living and seeing the world. We believe we should live like those who have come before us. But to be concerned with possessions and money is not the way it has to be done. When my teacher, Yamada Mumon Roshi, moved from the monastery in Kobe, where he had lived for some 20 years, to become abbot in Kyoto, he just one day got up and left, carrying only one thing, his wrapping cloth holding only his diary, leaving everything else behind, all the things he had gathered and accumulated for 27 years. Most people usually clean up and organize around themselves in apprehension of death. Mumon Roshi had no attachment to that or the idea of doing that. When he died, never having even had a cold for over 27 years, in the 5 days before his death, he just became a little weaker. He left as someone taking off their clothes, smoothly passing on. There are things which Mumon Roshi in his physical life couldn't completely finish, and I have taken them on for him. Or more than that, though Mumon Roshi's physical life ended with his physical body, that true life energy keeps going. And I am simply continuing the expression of that in the way that Mumon Roshi gave light to. When someone is as deeply enlightened or touches the true source as directly as Mumon Roshi did, there will always be someone around who is deeply impressed by that person's state of mind. And when that person who is moved and impressed keeps that going, then people around them are again moved and full of wonder at that. And that's how that keeps working. It is because the deep enlightenment of the Buddha, or the deep understanding and love and compassion of Christ were like that people have been impressed and felt that deeply and kept that. And that's the way that today we have the teachings of this state of mind continuing. I am absolutely sure that the Buddha did not have any wish or vow to turn everyone into Buddhists. All he wished for was the true liberation of all human minds.